voices will be heard saying it's done.
The Lord wants to awaken a groan again.
What it's rooted in is fascination. Like, imagine you have one opportunity to ask him questions. If you consider the heavens, the glory, the power, the wonder. If you consider it all, it's a speck in comparison to what lives in you. Because the one that spawned it looked at you and said, I want you to be my everlasting habitation. Hey everyone, welcome to the Habitation Podcast. This is a very special one today. We are in London, England, and I'm with my amazing friends and people that I've been looking forward to introducing you to. The Lord has been doing an amazing work out here, really since October. We've been on this journey of building this bridge between the United States and England. We're doing our last service here this morning. It's been an incredible time, but really I wanted to do this podcast and introduce you to a family that's become a huge part of Emily and I's story. We met in October. We've been doing a series of podcasts talking to you guys about Habitation Church. Did one with Corey Russell. You also saw one with Aprilli and Chad Osborne. And we're kind of showing our senior team of the church. And the newest addition to the senior team of Habitation Church in Florida is this amazing family, Andy and Lucy and all the boys. We tried to fit all the boys in, but they had 4 large sons that we couldn't fit in here. But this is the Packett family, and I'm excited to announce that they will be the shepherds and help pastor the Church of Habitation in Florida. And so they're moving their whole family from England to Florida, and we want to kind of share that journey with you guys. And why don't you guys introduce yourselves and just say hi and who you are, where you're from. Tell us your whole story and just try to do it in like 1 minute.
Impossible, yeah. Yeah, so we're from England. We're from Birmingham originally. That's where we first met and got married. We've been around the houses. We've lived not everywhere, but it feels like everywhere. We've moved around a lot. But yeah, where did we first meet? So we met in October in Matt and Ruthie's living room.
Yes, which is the couple that originally brought us in. I met them actually in Florida, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Amazing,
and
yeah.
This couple walks up to me at the Jesus Image Pastors Conference and basically says, we've been watching on YouTube, following the church, following the ministry. Would you, if we invited you, would you and your wife come to England? And we were like, yeah, we would absolutely come. And we came, we walked into this living room, and there was like 6 couples and the kids and the families. And Emily and I walked in the living room. I've shared this story many times. We walked into this living room in England in October, and our lives were changed by the hunger that we saw. I've never met boys. And really what it was, I'll never forget this. I saw Joe, your youngest son, during worship, and he was crying out before the Lord in a way like I'd never seen someone his age do. And I remember my first thought was, I wonder who his parents are. Who produced this, you know? And so I ended up connecting with you guys, and the Lord just did this mighty work. And so I got all kinds of questions for you.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's really important to say that, like, we've listened to William tell this story loads of times, and it's really great for us to kind of tell the story from our perspective. And our perspective is like, the Lord brought us into that living room with these precious people, with Paul and Sarah and Josh and Florrie and the Rogers, and so our journey to that point was actually like, we'd been watching like William online on YouTube for a couple of years, watching the kind of the Habitation story, the Risen Nation churches, and just been so blessed by it. The boys really significantly too. Watching like Habitation conferences where Corey Russell was speaking, and we'd just listen, and then we'd just be on the floor. We'd just be weeping, listening to these guys. Like, we don't know them, but there was just such an affinity in our heart, because I guess it felt like finally we were able to put language to understand what it was that was our journey. Like, the Lord had said to us, one of the first pillars of what is the arising that we've been building for the last kind of 4 or 5 years, really, in the background, in the hiddenness, was this pillar of ministry to the Lord. And I was like, Lord, what does that mean? Like, I'll just be really honest, like, it didn't even enter my mind, really, this concept that actually our primary calling could be to minister to God himself. And so listening to William, listening to Corey, listening to them talk about, you know, Psalm 132, among other things, I just put language to like, okay, Lord, this helps us to understand what it is that we're doing. So we like watching these guys on YouTube, and then in that October, we're like we're just looking around at each other, honestly, like, that's William Hinn. Like this is the guy from YouTube that we've been listening to, and the boys, and we were just so encouraged. So William tells the story that he found people that are just so hungry in the room, whereas we just felt like it was this joining, this kind of them being a catalyst to us obviously sparking something in William and Emily, and it just felt like there was just this interconnecting of something really, really precious. And we just kind of, from that point in October, I don't know, do you want to share a little bit about the prophetic sense of like the vehicle and...
Yeah, the Lord had said to us, like, we're in a lay-by and we're going to see a vehicle come past, and we will know that is the vehicle. We must follow that vehicle. And so we're waiting. We've packed up our house. We're waiting for what we know is a vehicle that's going to come past. It's Joshua 3:3. Like, you're waiting outside your tents. You see the ark of the presence of God, and you say, we need to follow. We need to go that way. And we don't know which way to go. We've never been this way before. And so the Lord had us in that place. And I think it's been a build-up over the last 5 years, a wilderness season, a season of stripping everything back. We left one country, came to another, ended up in Wales for a season, and the Lord stripped us back from everything we'd ever known, anything we'd ever been a part of. And then he kind of filled us up again with a vision that he gave us, and more of his heart, more of his life, and a real journey of surrender as well. But in that place, then the Lord spoke these words, you're going to see a vehicle and you're going to know, you're going to follow it. So when Habitation came into our lives, and William and Emily and the team, we were like, I think this is it. This is what we've been waiting for. We're ready. The Lord's had us in a lay-by. We're on standby. Our house is all packed up in boxes and we're ready. Yeah. What is it, Lord? And in between that, there was lots of unusual instructions that the Lord gave us. He said, I want you to go and live there. And we lived on a farm for 1.5 years. And it was the narrow road, I'd say. It was the narrow road, because we were like, why are we going to live in that place with those lovely people, as lovely as they are? But why are you taking us there? That doesn't make sense. We're believing for something else. This isn't it. The Lord's like, no, it's the narrow way. It's the way of humility. You need to go low.
Yeah,
and
he
go
said
slow.
that.
And
it's the gate of humility.
The gate of humility. And so that was tough, but God was so in it. God so provided for us, and it was so his heart. And then from there, to live with this other couple who are amazing. We love them, Dave and Ann Chapman. They're just heroes of the faith. We absolutely love them. But again, it was like, Lord, this isn't our preference. Is there any other way? I remember saying, Lord, is there any other way, over and over again? Because, Lord, we can't. You'd come, why are we doing this? And the Lord said, no, this is the path I have for you. Yeah. So on the back of that, that's when we then saw William and Emily and the team in March. And that's when it...
Yeah. And really quick, just so you know, there's a lot of background noise going on right now, and it's because we are about to have a service. Yeah. And Noah and the team are practicing. This will be a fun podcast, but I want to get into in a minute the arising and what you guys feel called to as, building priestly families, and this was what attracted me. But kind of going back, I came in October, fell in love with this whole community, with you guys, with the Rogers, and Emily and I just started building a relationship. It was so real to us when we were flying home in October. We were talking about, what do we have to sell to come back? I mean, and what's crazy is you guys were in a season of you put everything in storage, seeing what's next. We were in Nashville putting everything in storage, seeing what's next. And honestly, there was a part of me that thought, maybe the Lord's moving us to the UK. Maybe we're going to plant a church there. I don't know, God, what are you going to do? And now, full circle, realizing the Lord really, it was about, I think, a lot of this and us connecting. Yeah, I believe so. So we started building relationships starting in October, stayed connected. I've gotten really close with your sons and just built this beautiful relationship. Came back in January, started doing gatherings. But again, Emily and I still didn't really know what was next. But it was around January, February, God started speaking to us about Florida and planting a church in Florida. And I had told the Lord, if you're calling me to plant a church in Florida, in this new season, our pastor is a nation to my brother. If it's going to be Habitation Church, I laid before him 2 things. And one of those things was, I need you to identify to me shepherds. And I've realized in my life, I am not in that office of pastoral. Yeah. And I think a disservice we've done in the body of Christ in church is we've given people 1/5 of the lamb, when Exodus 12 says every house has to eat the whole lamb. It has to be the 5-fold ministry. But we're not really giving people the picture of the fullness of Christ. So I came back with my whole family in March for a whole month. We brought all the little ones, the toddlers, and it was crazy. And we did events, And Emily and I kind of came with open hands of, Lord, if you're going to move us to the UK, we're down. If you're going to move us to Florida, whatever you want. But I had laid this before the Lord. If you're calling us to plant a church in Florida, I need to find shepherds.
Yeah.
So it was only like a few days, I'm bringing this to the Lord, and a few days later, we all were on a walking by the sea. I think it was in Emsworth.
Yeah.
And I overhear Lucy talking to my wife, Emily, and you're talking about how you've, this story about the vehicle, and you said these words. You said, a year ago, we thought for sure God had spoken to us about being a mother and father in a community.
Yeah.
And we had said a year ago, we're 100% moving to, Orlando?
I don't know if I said America or Florida. I think it was one or the other. It
I-
may have been as specific as Florida, but I said, yeah, I just felt in my spirit we're going.
We are 100% moving to Florida, is what I heard in America. And I remember thinking, what did she just say?
Yeah.
And so then so I'm looking at Emily, because Emily knows. And when I first told Emily, I said, babe, I think that this is the family that's supposed to be the shepherds of the church in Florida. She's like, you are not asking this family to pick up everything and move to America. And I said, I won't do that. It has to be the Lord. It has to be the Lord.
Yeah.
And so you guys, the very next day, started talking to us about this call to America. And then we sat you down in the living room and we said, listen, don't follow us, but if God speaks to you, here's what I see God doing. And kind of laid out this door that you guys have been waiting for. And we all kind of like emotionally just talked in this living room about, what are you doing? And this would lead to Emily and I leaving the UK. We were in Nashville for one day. We packed up our stuff. We moved to Florida. We're launching officially August 31st, Habitation Church. We're already doing gatherings every Saturday night there. It's been amazing what God's done. They came and visited. But as of now, I mean, we're believing for a lot of miracles with immigration and stuff. But as of now, the goal is August.
Yeah.
Picking up their whole family, coming to the United States, coming to Florida to be the family pastors of the church. And one of the reasons that the Lord really spoke to me about you guys was I believe that where we're heading in the church is we're getting out of the mentality of just services. We're getting out of the mentality of just having good church gatherings.
Come on.
And actually getting the church back to what it actually was centered upon, which was family.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first people I've ever heard really share, we can't talk about being priests unto the Lord if we first can't be priestly families.
Come on.
Like we can't be priests to people and shepherds to people if we first can't shepherd our own family.
Yeah.
And so they started sharing with Emily and I some things that I would love for you guys to share about what the Lord spoke to you about changing the culture of your home. They started sharing stuff with Emily and I, and this was they were like in an interview process and didn't even realize it. But I'm listening to these things going, man, these are the epitome of just prophetic shepherds. And talking about some changes you made in your household that so impacted Emily and I. We went home and we implemented these changes with our little children, and we saw a shift take place in our house.
Wow.
And so I've instructed them, I've told them, guys, I need you to take what you've done with your sons, with your boys, and I need you to do it inside of a church. And that's what I'm excited for you guys to come and do. But before we kind of get into, and I think, they have a ministry called The Arising that's all about raising priestly families. But I'd love for you guys to share what impacted me so much. And what I believe is probably one of the number one needs in the church right now is building healthy family, healthy marriages. But what God spoke to you about changing the culture in your home, and what you feel God's asking you to bring to the church in Florida.
Yeah, I'd love to just speak into this because I feel like
this is what you burn for.
This is it. This is like the most important thing. And because I suppose it's a journey that's so like personal to our hearts, is essentially when we came back from Portugal and it was an unusual request from the Lord, but we were praying, I suppose this is what we were praying. Just, Lord, we've got to have you, whatever the cost.
Yeah.
Like that was the heart cry. We just have to have you, whatever the cost. And it was a confusing and a challenging time because God essentially asked us to come away from what we were in, and He drew us to the wilderness. Yeah. And I guess we weren't ready for that. We came to Wales. We came to family. Again, if I'm honest, like we're so like ministry minded that family, if God had said, I'm calling you to family, I would have made the presumption that can't be the Lord. Like, why would we be going to family?
That's not exciting.
Exactly. It's not as exciting. It doesn't tick all those boxes for me and my pride, essentially. And actually, so when we arrived in Wales, the Lord just brought us into this, I don't know how to describe it, like a sweet season but a horrific season of just really revealing our hearts to us, asking questions like, Andy, do you love me? And I'm like, I know that I've done all these things for the Lord, but do I know him? Do I love him? Is my heart actually lit up for Jesus, or is it lit up for the things that we do for him?
Come on.
And so we found ourselves in Wales. We found ourselves just, in all honesty, like I'm walking up mountains, which, to clarify for Americans, means just big hills, really. But like,
Florida, it's flat.
oh, exactly. So for Floridians, these were big mountains, yeah. But and it was just a beautiful time of just navigating, like, Lord, what are you wanting to do? And to go back to something Lucy mentioned earlier, he said this is going to be a dry docking season. He's lifting the boat out of the water. It's not just coming into harbour, out of the water. He's going to take things out and he's going to put other things in
So
that are
is this
necessary.
before or after Portugal?
After Portugal.
This is all in,
So
in
you
Wales.
guys had moved from England to Portugal.
Yeah.
Yep.
In, his
In
first
2011,
season to
yeah.
help plant a church.
Yeah.
And then you ended up moving back to Wales.
Yeah. So that was 2018.
Yeah, it basically started in 2017 when God told us to leave everything we'd ever done, leave our jobs to follow him wholeheartedly. And so we were like, okay. So I left my job in 2016. We were working because we needed to work out there, but we were involved in the church. And then the Lord said, I want you to follow me. I'm rousing this bear that's been in hibernation. It's like this call that I have on your life. I'm awakening that call again. And we're like, okay. And then for a whole year, so Andy left his job 1st of July 2017. And I was convinced 2nd of July, we're going to step into this amazing, opening. And for a whole year, we were like, what are you saying, Lord? And he said, I'm calling you to climb a mountain. So for a whole year, we're like, let's just go up mountains. This is whilst we're in Portugal. The whole year, we're like, Lord, why have you called us out of work? Why are we available full time? What are you calling us to? And so we're seeking him, we're praying, we're fasting, we're pressing in, and we're reading dangerous books. We're pressing into what we call Birthing the Miraculous by Heidi Baker, the Argentine Revival by Ed Miller, like all these really
Dirty Glory,
Dirty
Pete Gregg.
Glory.
Yeah.
And we're like, the Lord is so calling us to himself more fully. And we're saying, we want you, whatever the cost. We will go anywhere. We will do anything. Those prayers that are dangerous. And little did we know, on a day when we're really pressing in with the Lord, he says, and now I'm inviting you, I'm calling you to cross over the bridge to new pastures, and you're going to go to this new place. And we're like, oh, you'll be saying goodbye to the place you're in.
I think it's really helpful to say at this moment as well, to give a clear context, like we felt like we were doing family well. We're building healthy family. We were involved with young people in Portugal, involved with a lovely set of families in Portugal where we're
Helping to build the church.
exactly doing all the things that we knew was good to do. The boys were, they're happily coming along to church. They weren't resistant, and we were, loving the Lord in the home as best as we knew how. And although there were definitely things that we didn't realise, we kind of knew we didn't really like, but things that the boys want to do, and it was kind of chaotic, really. And when we arrived in Wales, the Lord gave us a couple of unusual requests. This is how the Lord works for us. Like, we're praying about, really spiritual things.
What are we doing? Where are we going? Lord,
And then the Lord dropped this bomb on us. Do you want to share how kind of God spoke that to you?
Yeah, we were praying, we were seeking the Lord, praying, and he's just one day just said, I want you to change the culture in your home, otherwise you will raise monsters. And we're like, whoa, monsters, that seems a bit extreme. What are you saying, Lord? But we were like, okay, I want you to change the culture in your home. That's what the Lord's saying. Otherwise, what do monsters represent? They represent living for self, I guess. A monster is somebody who lives for self and is completely obsessed with themselves. So, yeah.
Yeah. So for us, we were like, okay, we had this I always say this to people, this is super important. Otherwise, people will just be like, well, what did you do to make family work? What's the formula? Tell us, A, B, C, D. We'll do all those things, and then we'll have this priestly family. But actually, what we really did was say, well, Lord, what do we need to do? What needs to change? And we just felt the Lord saying, I don't want it to be that you're kind of Christians, but essentially there's a worldly culture in the home. But actually, I want it to be a kingdom culture. If it's going to be real, it's got to be real in the home. It can't just be real on a Sunday morning. It's got to be the real deal in the home. So we know the things that we did well as parents, but we could write probably a bigger book on what we did wrong as parents. And there's so many things. Our boys are very gracious with us, which is amazing. But actually, the Lord, he landed in our home. And this is really important to say. Look, if the boys were here to tell the story, they would say, excuse me, Mum and Dad's obedience essentially opened a door.
Yeah, I've heard them say that.
For the Lord to come in. And so like sometimes maybe it's false humility. It's like, oh, we didn't really do anything, but actually we did, in the sense of like, we consecrated our lives to say, we will go wherever you take us. We will do whatever you ask of us. We have to have you.
And there was practical things you did.
There were.
There was things that you decided you're no longer going to do.
Yeah.
Within your household.
Yeah.
I love what you shared one time, and I'll let you share it, of course. But you talked about how you realized you all had these individual lives.
Yeah.
You know, and then you just started doing things. You made a point to do everything together.
Come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was essentially like we felt the monster was self. How do we do community? How do we build community in the home? And actually, I mean, this will be music to many, many parents' ears. This is a challenge. Now, we had teenage boys that, if I'm talking to an audience of like people like William's kids that are like 8 and under. So I'm like, well, how do we encourage William and Emily with their kids? We say, well, just build family well. Maintain wonderful relationship with your kids so that when they get to an age where they could potentially be defiant, actually you've won them to yourselves. Yeah. And that they love you and that they respect and understand, and they're like, do you know what, this is going to be for good, for our good. And I guess that's the situation we had. So we took the boys to McDonald's. This is the way to do it. Public space. There can't be a big meltdown. We got them a McFlurry. We're like,
in those days that worked.
Yeah, exactly.
Nowadays it might not.
That was simple at the time. And essentially what we did was we said to the boys, look, there's some things that just have to go. So Fortnite, like I'm speaking to the world of like the gaming, like we had 4 boys that each would spend, you know, we'd let them have their kind of hour a day, which seemed fine. But actually when you got 4 boys, that meant 4 hours a day. They all wanted to be it was just a crazy world. A game that can't be paused.
Oh, yeah.
So boys can't serve and help and love and honour and do all those things. And we were just like, me and Lucy went for more walks than we could imagine just to get out from our home in Portugal, because Fortnite was just taking over, really. And so we're like, well, that needs to go, boys. It's just got to go. There can't be like this negotiating with it. We're just like, it just has to go. So, and they were kind of like, okay, type thing. And it's not that it was like, you know, they weren't like, anyway, I don't need to justify, but yeah, they had friends that were like 12 hours a day. So in that sense, they weren't doing too bad. Just want to honour the boys with that, because they were living good, healthy lives as well. But yeah, so we stopped that. We stopped some other things. I suppose we created a vacuum so that we could add in the good stuff. Because it's not just about getting rid of the bad stuff. It's like, well, what are we going to do instead? Because if you create a vacuum,
I think God ideas are just so the best. Like he's like, just get rid of those things, and then you're going to have all this time, and then what you're going to do with your time. So then we realised, okay, what are we going to do with our time? And so you started reading like really precious books to the boys, to all of us.
I think to give context as well, actually, like anyone that knows us as a family, especially knows me and the boys, like we were football obsessed. So for the American audience, that's soccer. But just it was an idol, like just calling it out as it was. Like I grew up living for it, became a football coach with a sports ministry. Like it was life. The boys raised playing football in the kind of the streets of Portugal, as it were, and it was just our joy. But we were watching it like 4 or 5 nights a week, and we didn't think anything was wrong with it. And then this thing happened where Josh just one day decided that he wasn't going to sit down and watch the game tonight, and he went off into his room just to like read and seek the Lord. And I felt so convicted. I'm like, I'm supposed to be the guy that's like doing that, but I would be doing that in my day whilst he's at school. I'd be like, oh, I love it. You know, we can watch football, build community together in the evening, but realise like they were hungering for more. Yeah. And actually what happened is, and it's really helpful to say this, it is a process. Like this isn't something that just happens overnight. Like this has been a 5-year journey, and we're still navigating things that we can do better, things that we want to honour the Lord with. But things just started to change. And this is when the Lord said, I'm going to show you the arising in the lives of your boys. And so we begin to be like, okay, we don't know what that means, but in practice, what it meant was they were coming home from school. And
so this is age 15, 14.
Yeah, kind of 15, 16, that kind of age was Josh and Micah. And for us, it was they would come home from school. I suppose to give context, right context, Josh would come home and look at me and be like, Dad, why are you so tender? Like, what's going on? Why are you just crying? Why do you just want to talk about like Jesus all the time? What's going on? And he noticed that I was fasting. So he was like, okay, well, fasting equals tender. I've got to do that. And like, for me, like, I don't know, I was probably about 30 the first time I fasted. I had no context of it really. But they began to just press into the Lord in ways that were just unprecedented really for us. And we just watched them come in, go up into their bedrooms, which again, for many people, your teenage son comes home and goes up to his bedroom is normally a recipe for disaster. But for us, we'd be downstairs and we'd be hearing like the crying out to the Lord, the wailing, the worship, which didn't always sound good, often with headphones on, just this kind of like, his warbles from upstairs. But actually, it would leave me and Lucy just broken downstairs, that like the boys were just falling in love with Jesus. Yeah. And it was this arising that was happening where God said, I'm going to take the dead things and I'm going to bring them to life. I'm going to awaken them. And so we watched this happen. And it kind of was just this journey as a family where we did it together. We came alive together. We sought the Lord together.
It was miraculous. We look back and think, what has God done? Like the Lord broke into our home. He broke into the boys' lives, and it was nothing we did other than the little things, the steps of obedience. But it was God. It was so God.
It was a sovereign reality. And I know it's really difficult because our kids would say, no, Mum and Dad, you were praying the crazy prayers, reading the crazy books, pursuing the Lord.
And I agree with them. I mean, the Bible says you know a man by his fruit.
Come on.
And again, they're the most, again, they're super down to earth. They're boys.
Yeah.
I played soccer with them. I beat them, obviously. Just kidding. They're the best soccer players I've ever experienced in my life. But they're totally normal, because I think some people hear this and they're like, how could I ever get there?
Yeah.
These are normal boys.
Yes.
Come on.
Yet the way that they pursue and love God.
Yeah.
I watched my little son when we were here for a month. William, he was 6 years old when we were here. I watched him one service, he's looking at Isaac worshiping. I can see him calculating it. And I watched my son begin to lift his hands and close his eyes, and then he falls on his knees. And I'm thinking to myself, he might just be mimicking Isaac right now, but one day that's going to become real to him.
So good.
And I kind of had this epiphany, and this is really what led to, like, guys, I just want to kind of lay this before you, is there's such a need for family right now in the church. We need less leaders with organizations and more families with fathers. But you know what's interesting is Malachi chapter 4, the last prophecy before Jesus comes. Malachi comes and really through the mouth of Malachi, the Lord begins to speak, and he says, I'm going to take the hearts of fathers and I'm going to turn them to their children.
Come on.
Hearts of children, I'm going to turn them towards their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. And he talks about John the Baptist coming in the spirit of Elijah, right? Or the spirit of Elijah coming to turn the hearts of fathers to children, hearts of children to fathers. This would be the last prophecy before Jesus comes in the New Testament. So, in other words, the Lord's saying, like, this is the Malachi mandate, is before the coming of the Lord, I'm going to create an environment of family. Like, what is conducive for the coming of the Lord is the environment of family.
Yeah.
And so I believe that what is still conducive for the coming of the Lord is the environment of family, and we've made it more about services and gatherings than actually sitting at the most important table of our lives, and that's the one we're going to sit out with our family and have dinner.
Come on.
And so, I've seen the fruit of your guys' life with your sons, and I've watched it impact my kids already. And I kind of came to this epiphany. It's like, if I could choose to send my kids to Brownsville for 5 years, or the Welsh Revival for 2 years, or go to Asbury, or whatever, all of these moves that we've seen, I said, I would pick having my kids grow up around the Packet Boys than have them go to a revival that ends in 2 years. And what you guys are describing is you experienced revival in your home.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
And even just the week you spent in Florida, as you guys came and kind of just looked in the area, and we planned out, what is the church going to, how are we going to build family at Habitation Church? Just in that week that you were there, I had people come up to me and say, just being around them has drastically changed how we view family. And so I want you guys, I really wanted the world to meet you guys.
So good.
And see what I see, but more than that, what you guys carry. And inspiring that the greatest and most important, most holy work we have in our lives is our kids.
Come on.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of step into this new season of, it's not about how big meetings we can have,
Yeah.
but how are we discipling nations?
Yeah.
And how can we ever be entrusted to disciple nations if we can't disciple our own home?
So good.
Yeah.
So, like I said, they have a ministry called The Arising.
Yeah.
You guys can give details of where they can find out about The Arising, but my heart and vision and dream for the church is that the church is home. It's
Yeah.
a place where we can all come, but that individual ministries that God's called you to can thrive. God's called us to Habitation as a ministry and a school, and you guys have this ministry that's about equipping families and creating healthy marriages, creating healthy sons and daughters that become priestly in how they do life. And so I want you guys to go check out The Arising. There's financial miracles that we need for the move to be able to happen with ease and abundance. And so I want you guys, if you're watching, go check out The Arising. Support this family, support what they're doing, and I promise if you begin to implement, and I know you just shared a couple of practical things, but again, they're moving to Florida, and we're going to build a whole church around this revelation of God is looking for His family in the earth.
Yeah.
And so you'll see them a lot on YouTube in the future. We're going to start live streaming on August 31st. We're going to be live streaming. Lucy's like, I don't want to preach, but she's going to. It's going to be great. But anyway, let them know how they can connect with you guys through The Arising.
Yeah, so we kind of literally, we're at a place where we've just made building family like everything. So we're like the least like amazing at like trying like all the technological stuff. So we've just got like for the first time like a logo and some branding.
Yes.
We're getting a YouTube channel set up. I'm so bad that I probably can't even tell you like what that link is, but I think it's like at The Arising Global on YouTube. If you check that out, maybe we can drop.
Arising Global.
I think so. I think that's the handle on YouTube.
We'll have it at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't got anything on it yet.
Yeah. It's literally at the moment, it's like a logo, and just a tagline. And I think this is really important to say that it's awaken a generation. And that's what we believe is on the Lord's heart to do. In fact, like I almost want to, even as I'm hearing William talk, like we know that God's called us to be a father and a mother. Yeah. And we know that that's what we're coming for. We're coming to see a generation of young people awakened, but it's not just about young people. It's anyone that's alive in this generation that just needs to be awakened to the fact that there's more and that the Lord's wanting to move. When, just to give a little bit of context to what William mentioned before about a year ago, it was actually about 3 years ago when Lucy had that sense in Wales of we're 100% moving to America. Like me and the boys kind of teased her for like a couple of years. We didn't tell anyone this because we're like, it's kind of mum, kind of, Lucy being a bit crazy. Like it's like the prophetic again, but actually everything she says normally gets like just proved to be absolutely right. Wow. The boys spend a lot of time apologising for not believing the word. And so we know, exactly. So we know we're coming to this nation, not because we've got like any kind of rose, I don't know, tinted glass, or yes, we're going to Florida, it's going to be amazing. We know that this is going to cost us everything. Yeah. And we know that, and we're coming with that in mind because we have to see the Lord move in family. And we're so excited. I just felt like a practical thing as well that's really important to just throw out there for people that are thinking, well, how do we do it in the home? Or how do we do it corporately? Actually, this is a line that God gave us for Joe. And that was, if he's in the sun, he'll get a tan. And that reality of let's create environments and the atmosphere of his presence, bring people into that, it will transform them. It's God that's going to change people in his presence. We can't do it without it. And essentially that is our message, is the glory of God, the presence of God came into our home and it changed us. And it wasn't all like, woo, like there was a fair, it was tough. In fact, when the glory comes first, it's super sweet and you're grateful, and then it starts to separate and it starts to say, this has got to go, this has got to go. And people get confused and don't understand the journey and they question, but actually it's unto this deeper reality. And that's what we're so excited about coming to just, like I'm so excited about like coming to the gatherings and the service, but I'm like, William, how do we get into people's homes and just talk to people?
And to speak to their character, one of the conversations we had was I talked about, with preaching and just the practicals of it. And you said, hey, I just want you to know we desire to sit in living rooms with people.
Come on.
And you don't hear that in ministry today. Usually people are crawling to the pulpit. And real shepherds have a desire to smell like sheep.
Come on.
And that's what you guys carry. and my heart with the church and really seeing the fivefold within the church is that people come in and that there's not one person within the church that just feels like they're on an island. And so we're creating practical ways within family groups, how we plan on building house to house and having still the corporate gathering, of course, but things that we're processing through now, I'm really excited to kind of share with the world.
Come on.
And what we believe God wants to do with Habitation. But you're right, it starts with preparing a place and a table for the Lord and inviting a family to come sit at it.
Yeah.
So we're very excited. On the link we'll put about the Arising, there's a way to support them, and I just want us to do that. Or you can give it to Habitation Ministries, and we'll make sure that it goes toward them. But guys, thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you.
We're about to go into this service here in London, and the Lord is going to move in a powerful way. I feel it today.
Wow.
Wonderful.
And so, guys, be praying for us, standing with us. But you guys now have met. Everyone knows Corey, of course. He's on our senior team, but Aprilli and Chad and this beautiful Packet family, and they're coming and doing it as a family.
Yes.
Yeah,
Just
so
exciting,
important.
yeah.
So
Our
important.
boys are going to come. They're going to light our young people on fire.
Yeah.
We're very excited. So,
Yeah.
thank you guys for watching today.
Yeah, thank you.
And the next time you see us together, in Jesus' name, we're going to be in Florida.
Come on.
Habitation Church.
Yeah.
See you guys.